Hey guys, welcome to the next tutorial. So for this video I'm going to be covering our phase 3 for this little guide that I've been following here, and in this we're going to be installing a triple boot. Really it's the same thing as dual boot, but we're going to be installing Linux Mint alongside our existing Linux and Windows installations. So this will be pretty much the same process, and the reason I'm doing this is to show you that if you already have Windows installed on your computer, you can really quickly and easily install a copy of Linux Mint right alongside that. So right now we currently have a dual boot setup where we have Ubuntu Server 64-bit and Windows 7 Ultimate 64-bit installed to our computer system. And so now we want to move to adding a third operating system, in this case, as we said, Linux desktop, using Linux Mint. And specifically we're going to be using the version with the Cinnamon desktop. So the first thing we're going to do is download it, and then we're going to create a bootable CD, DVD, or USB, which we've been doing all along. And then we're going to boot from that and install. And you'll find that this is actually much easier than our previous tutorial. In that case we installed Windows on top of an existing Ubuntu server, and that caused a whole lot of problems because we had to fix our grub bootloader, we had to resize our partitions. So this is actually going to be a whole lot faster. So the first thing we need to do is open up our browser, and if you go to www.linuxmint.com, you get this page here. You can go to download, and you have all of these options here. We're going to choose the third one down here, the Cinnamon, and we want the 64-bit. So we click on that and now select a link based on whatever country you're in. So for North America, you want to select one that, if you can tell, that's closer to where you live, you should get hopefully a better download rate. So Maryland's pretty close to me. I would select this one. I already downloaded it earlier. So now, really quickly, just as we had seen with Ubuntu, and I didn't want to leave this out, but you can go here and donate. Since you're getting this for free, obviously if you like it a lot, you might want to help contribute to it so that it continues to be good in the future. So they have a quick donation page, and I've actually donated before. You can use PayPal or credit cards or whatever you want, and you can choose any amount. So you can choose $1, you can give them $10, you can give them $100 if you want. Or you can just take it for free and you don't have to give them anything. But I just thought I would throw that out there. So once we do that, we use Deep Burner or UNetbootin. We create our bootable media. And then at that point, we can start the computer and load from our either disk or the USB, whichever one you choose to use. So in my case, I have the bootable USB that I made with UNetbootin. It gives their loader interface, so I'm going to choose the Start Linux Mint option. And the way Mint works, it by default forces you into the live version, and from there you then choose the installer. So this should only take about a minute. Okay, now we're in the live version of Linux Mint, and you can see you have your computer option, your home folder, and then this icon here, which allows us to install Linux Mint. And if you want to just explore around, you can check it out and see if you like it. So in a lot of ways, this has everything that I initially liked about Ubuntu in the previous edition, so pretty much up to version 10.04. And it also has a lot of similarities to Windows. So if you're coming from Windows, you'll find that it's pretty intuitive and a lot of the same functionality exists. So we want to install it. We're going to choose our default language. This just says make sure that you have enough room and you're connected to the internet. Now on this screen we have a few options. It has detected the other operating systems on it, so it's asking us if we want to install it alongside them. Do we want to erase the disk and just install Mint? So we're going to obviously choose to install them alongside it, and now we have this repartitioning segment, and we've done this before, but since Mint builds it right in, it's pretty easy to do. You can select this little divider here right in the middle and then click and drag it left or right to resize. So the one on the left is where we're going to actually install Mint to. You can try and get it right down the middle if that's what you want. We'll get it as close as possible in this case. So that's pretty good. Now select Install Now. And it just gives you a warning once you do this, it's going to finalize these settings. So there you go. Now in this case, it's actually taking our Windows partition and resizing it. So Windows is going to be this one on the right, and Mint is going to go on the one on the left. Okay, the keyboard layout and everything, you can just probably keep the defaults. This is going to be your name, your username, the computer name. Now, I've had problems with this in the past where once you change it, it still says that this exists on the network, but you can ignore that error for now. In most cases, it shouldn't give you a problem unless you're naming this the same as one of your other computers. So put in your password and confirm it. And it actually doesn't really like mine that much, but I used a pretty simple one just to keep track of them for the demonstration purposes. Okay, it asks to import anything. We don't have to do that. It didn't find any, so just keep continuing. Let me skip ahead a little bit here. Okay, it doesn't take that long, so once it finishes you can then continue to use it and test it out, or you can restart it. And it just says that anything you do and save won't actually be preserved, so once you restart it, all of that work will be gone. And now once it starts to boot up, you'll notice that we have a couple new entries and changes to our grub bootloader. So here you can see these two new entries that correspond to the Linux Mint that we just installed to it, and then the memory tests, which we don't need to really worry about. Now, there's a little bit of a difference here for our Ubuntu. It just updated a little bit. So now, whenever you want to load Ubuntu, we can just select this option here, and then our two Windows options. So we'll start by just testing out that our Ubuntu server still works. And we didn't really touch that partition or a portion of the hard drive, so there should be no problem with this one. And it boots right into our Ubuntu server login. So I hit Control-Alt-Delete, and now it's going to restart. So now let's just go ahead and test out that our Linux Mint loads up. Alright, put in your name, hit enter, then put in your password and hit enter. And the first time this little pop-up window will come up and just show you around a little bit. So if you don't want to see this anymore, you can just go ahead and deselect this, show this dialog at startup, and then close it. And then you won't have this pop up anymore. So if we open up the computer icon there, you can see the different partitions on our hard drive. And we have this 77 gig one, which we had resized in the slider. This corresponds to our Windows. And now the 157 gigabyte is our original Ubuntu server. And then finally the one labeled file system is the file system for this, for Linux Mint. And the way you can really tell a difference, because it looks similar, if you go into your home folder, you have all of these icons here, which are not going to be present inside of our Ubuntu server. So we can go ahead now and go down to the bottom here, and this is how you can shut down the computer or exit out. So we'll just restart it, and now we just want to make sure that our Windows portion still boots up, since we had actually messed with that partition a little bit. And what ends up happening is, we'll see in a minute, since Windows was on the partition that we actually resized when we installed Mint, it's going to detect that there was some kind of a change or some kind of an error, and it's going to ask us to start up this check disk utility. So here it just wants to check it. You can skip this by pressing any key, but it doesn't hurt to let it run through once just to make sure there's no errors, and once it does it once, it shouldn't come up again. So it starts off slow, it'll get much quicker. Okay, now it's going to reboot once it finishes that, and you'll get the grub menu again. So we'll just go down to our Windows again and just make sure that it works this time. Alright, so now everything works, and at this point we have a copy of Ubuntu Server. We also have an option for Windows 7, which we've loaded into right now, and alternately we have the option for Linux Mint. So we have 3 operating systems, and in the next few tutorials we're going to start doing what's known as virtualization. We're going to start with VirtualBox inside of our Windows installation here, and allow ourselves to install another copy of Linux, but running inside of Windows at the same time. So check out the next tutorial, and thanks for watching.